now.
Upon reading what Melanie had written and some of her thoughts, a thought came to me this evening from Psalm 133, verse 1. Behold, how very good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell in unity. This evening, you will be hearing phrases like love heals, seeking community, binding us together, as we hear in that familiar hymn, bind us together in love. All of these things are what Diamond Lake is now all about. People coming together to share in hard conversations, to think about justice in a new way, and to form a new community outside of our church walls. The church has always struggled to get along with one another. This is nothing new, but the psalmist reminds us, may we be inspired and to know how very good it is when we come together in unity and when we serve together for the sake of Christ and Christ's mission to the world. That is what coming together will look like, both in our physical space and what we have to offer as a church community. And our building, as it takes new shape, will bring new ministry and new opportunity to each one of us coming together in both unity and love. Let us pray. Lord God, you have told us how very good and pleasant it is when kindred, when brothers and sisters come together in spirit and unity. May you continue to bind us together in unity and love, becoming your hands, your feet, and your heart for the sake of the world and for all of those we encounter, to promote justice, healing, and love. This night and into our journey ahead. In Jesus' name and through your Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dan. I'm going to share our verse here. So we have been looking at this verse throughout this time in Lent, and I will read it one more time from Micah 6:8. He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. So there are different translations of this, and we used a little different translation tonight. Instead of saying love mercy, this says love kindness. And both phrases are fantastic and say a very similar thing. But there's something about this saying, love kindness, that feels so simple to us. And although the idea seems easy, in practice, we know that sometimes we fall short of that practice of loving kindness. Today, we're going to hear from Melanie Reitz, who has an amazing example from her life of how she has seen this verse lived out in the world. So a little introduction of Melanie, and thank you, Melanie, for being here tonight. She has been a member of Diamond Lake Lutheran for 3 years, and recently has been involved with the Journey Towards Justice team. She lives in Richfield with her spouse, Jacob, and her two kids. After graduation from Lutheran College in Decorah, she joined Lutheran Volunteer Corps and spent a year working in the Justice for Women department at the ELCA churchwide office in Chicago. She then attended Vanderbilt Divinity School in Nashville, where she earned a Master of Divinity degree. And during her time at Vanderbilt, she began working with Thistle Farms, a recovery community and social enterprise for women survivors of trafficking and addiction. So she is here to share that story with us. And I know she is going to provide a video for us. And I hope that that works for us. So Melanie, thank you for being in here, and we're happy to hear your story.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, as John said, I'm going to start with a video. I had sort of a thought to introduce Thistle Farms myself, and then just realized it's really doesn't do justice to it unless you can kind of see the faces and see the buildings and see more about it. So if, like John said, hopefully it'll work, but I'll share my screen here and just share a short intro video.
I was trapped in a 10-block radius for well over 20 years, and I sold myself as if I was a commodity, and I never dreamed that I would get my life back.
In my household, there was a lot of abuse that led me to using drugs, and then it led me also into the prison system. Being as young as I was, I felt like there was no way out.
My life was so, oh God, it was so much confusion.
Thistle Farms is a justice social enterprise dedicated to helping women who are survivors of trafficking, addiction, and prostitution recover and heal. None of the women that we serve at Thistle Farms ended up on the streets by themselves. It took a whole bunch of broken systems and broken communities that really rolled out a red carpet. That story is borne by the women of Thistle Farms, who on average are first raped between the ages of 7 and 11 and first hit the streets between 14 and 16 years old.
Women just don't choose to be on the streets or selling themselves. If you go back, you will find some traumatic circumstances that have happened in each woman's life that have made them feel like this is all I have, or this is the only way that I'm going to get someone to love me.
At Thistle Farms, we believe that women deserve a second chance at life. But the amazing thing to me is many of the women we serve, this is their first chance at life. You know, if they entered into trafficking at the age of 5 or 6, they never had a fair shake. And this may be the first time a community has invested in them to say, now's your time. We do this by providing safe housing, good jobs, and a lifelong sisterhood of support.
When I came here, my whole world changed. Everything. Everything that I needed was provided for me, from mental health meds to the physical help that I needed, dental, vision, free of charge for me.
Nobody cared about my background because I probably wouldn't have a job. It was just a blessing to be able to come somewhere and to get training.
See, I struggled so long with knowing if I was loved. That had a lot to do with me being in addiction for so long, because I didn't think anybody cared, anybody loved. But every day, the women in this community, they love me.
I have never been welcomed and not judged. And in my interview, my boss said, it doesn't matter about your past or what you're in prison for or what you did. None of that matters. Tell me what you do now for your recovery, for yourself, for your sobriety. And that was different. It was something I had never experienced.
People will love you so much. They love you back to life. I truly believe that love does heal. I like the fact that I go to work and I pay bills, and it's just different. It's just different being here on the other side.
Without Thistle Farms, I don't know exactly where I'd be. I don't know.
I had always been in a situation where I got to give something to get something, but this was one of those programs that we give and we give and we give, and all we want you to do is learn how to love yourself. We're going to keep loving on you until you learn how to. And now I love me to death. I do. I love me to death now. I do.
I wish I had dreamed bigger sooner. I really do. I mean, I think I spent too much time thinking this was really small. And loving people is a really big idea, and it means that we have to be big enough to live into that idea. It's about remembering the amazing things that love has done and believing in the amazing things that are still to come. It reminds us to, stay rooted in that small circle where we believe one candle lit can bring another woman home. But it also means believing that we make a difference in this world and that together we can be a powerful symbol for how love heals. And that's what we're going to do. So we're just hitting our stride. We are the largest social enterprise of its kind in the US. But, we're just beginning to light a candle. And we're going to do it because people still love us and hope with us. And we are committed to growing the movement that reminds the whole world that love is the most powerful force for change there is.
Okay, so thank you for indulging that. I think I can just stop now, right?
It's lunchtime here at the Thistle Cafe downtown Nashville. Feels great, but I have a hard question.
See, is that me?
Do you know what it feels like to be caught between the rock and the hard?
Sorry about that. All right.
Stop. We're all good.
Had an extra video going. Sorry there. So yeah, thank you for indulging in the video and seeing that piece of it. I think that just gives a good framework for what I'm going to talk about today. So as you can see, Thistle Farm's motto is "Love Heals." And this sounds simplistic, as we've said, and in many ways it is. But the power in it is that it is so simple. However, living in community, the realities of recovery, and a workplace that's also a recovery community requires constant recalibration and returning to that simple message. So each Wednesday at Thistle Farms, we would gather in a circle, pre-COVID at least, as you saw in the video, and read and reflect on one of Thistle Farms' 20 spiritual principles. Today, I'm going to introduce you to 3 of those that will frame our conversation. John, do you want to share the PowerPoint or should I? Okay.
I will.
Great, thank you. So the first principle is come together. And it says, no matter where we are, we're better coming together than living separately. We weave our separate paths into a community because even though there's brokenness, we long to live in hope. We come from prisons, from the streets, from religious institutions, and from corporations out of our comfort zones because we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We come in every color, we come lonely and afraid and do not want to die. We come because our bodies and spirits are sick. We come because our churches are stale, our work is isolating, and we need to find our way. So the circle at Thistle Farms is one where I truly learned to come together. People of all walks of life would be listening to that same reading and reflecting on what it meant in their lives. Rather than some kind of grief Olympics, mine was worse than yours, and I can only speak if such and such thing happened to me. Everyone's story mattered, and that was a point of connection. This physical coming together always reminded us of why we were there, working in community toward a common goal. The next one. Thanks, John. The next one is listen to a new idea. So sometimes we have to be willing to stand on new ground. Sometimes we have to be willing to walk behind someone who knows the path better than we do. When we listen to new ideas, sometimes it feels like we are lost, but it's just the wonder of discovering something new. When we open our hearts along with our ears, sometimes in a new idea, we find sacred ground. We walk this ground and trust that love will lead us to a new place. This means we need to be open to other perspectives about new ways of acting and thinking. We need to be open to the small changes in how we think, small changes that can make a huge difference in our lives. So our founder, Becca Stevens, who you saw in that video, is actually an Episcopal priest. And she says this about starting Thistle Farms on the next slide. She said, I stopped apologizing for what I believed. Then I stopped worrying if people thought I was a heretic. Then I started feeling like I could be myself and had more energy to love others. Then I felt excited about the ideas that were forming in my head, and I felt more confident that I could live out my faith honestly in my life. Changing my old thoughts and listening to some new ideas had a huge impact on starting the community of Thistle Farms. So Becca started Thistle Farms simply wanting to give women a place to lay their head, somewhere to rest and recover. She recognized that stable housing, basic needs, and healthcare were key for women to find lasting recovery, particularly coming out of prisons or coming off the streets. If you have nowhere to go, there's really very little hope for long-term recovery. One of the ways that she laid the foundation for Thistle Farms was by enlisting her congregants as a priest actually on the Vanderbilt campus. She shared her message, gained support, and ultimately brought her congregation along with her in the vision. So while Thistle Farms has grown much larger, it's not technically affiliated with Becca's church, St. Augustine's, anymore. It's certainly several of our supporters, several people who have volunteered for years and years are still part of that St. Augustine's community. The origins of Thistle Farms are very much connected to Becca's congregation's willingness to listen to her new idea and see how it would fit in their understanding of Christianity and what they saw as their role as the church. So a few years after the first 5 women came to stay in the first house, Becca realized that the residents couldn't fully find healing without economic support as well. So another new idea sprang up, the idea for the social enterprise, which is what you saw throughout the video as well. Residents could begin making and selling home and body products that were as healing for the earth as they were for our bodies. In order to get the social enterprise started, another local congregation opened up their doors and the residents began pouring candles in a church basement. And that was where the social enterprise, where you saw the huge manufacturing room and new cafe and all the beautiful buildings, all of that really started in the basement of St. George's just down the road in Nashville. So knowing this story and seeing some of the amazing things that have grown from church folks' willingness to listen to a new idea gives me great faith in what church communities can help create. So the last principle that I'll read today, if you want to look at the other 17, there's a book you can order, but this one is love without judgment. So we love women still walking the streets, the people who have turned away from us, and the people we thought we could not love. This is the kind of radical love that can change the world. That is the kind of radical love that can turn stone hearts to flesh. We believe that radical love is experienced in how we serve one another. We're called to offer hospitality to every guest, resident, staff member, stranger, and old friend. We remember all of the kindness that people have offered us. We treat everyone as a blessing and offer them something: tea, handmade products, or a story on the road. So one of the ways that this radical love and service stood out in my experience with Thistle Farms was in the form of radical hospitality. The residences, again, as you saw in the video, were not just houses, but beautiful, well-cared-for homes that residents were proud to call their own. People new to the community, residents, staff, guests, anyone who walked in the doors were welcomed and treated as the most important person in the room. To love without judgment is deeply rooted in grace, a gift freely given with no prerequisites and no strings. I saw this freedom from judgment in the way that we thought about relapse at Thistle Farms. Relapse was recognized as part of recovery rather than a failure or starting from square one. The door always remained open when a sister wanted to return, and this reflected too in one of our other spiritual principles, take the longer path. A commitment to loving without judgment is in itself a long path, as it's a constant practice rather than a final destination. So in these Lenten talks, we're supposed to discuss our own journeys, and instead I have expertly avoided that and discussed an organization that I love instead. So here goes a little more about why this is so meaningful for me. The first principle, come together, is what continually brings me back to the church. While my family joined Diamond Lake shortly after moving back to Minnesota in 2017, we didn't become more involved until this past summer. In the midst of a pandemic and after George Floyd was killed, I was seeking community. I turned to Diamond Lake looking for people to come together with, to have hard conversations about our role as Christians in justice work. I've been immensely grateful for this group that has continued to come together for nearly a year. Coming together is also about the physical space that we offer. The Journey Toward Justice group has talked a lot recently about the space that we inhabit, the land our church is built upon, and how we steward that land and our space. I see huge opportunity in the new building for the chance to offer a place for different members of our community to join together. And Diamond Lake's mission to learn, follow, and serve lends itself perfectly to the principle of listening to a new idea. The past year has given us all so many opportunities to learn and to seek those new ideas. For Becca and her congregation in Nashville, taking the time to listen to a new idea created the opportunity for Thistle Farms to grow and for so many women to find hope and healing. While we may not seek to lay the foundation for a nonprofit social enterprise, I'm excited to see what new ideas may emerge as we reimagine our space and eventually gather once again in person. At Thistle Farms, I witnessed lives transformed, not only residents, but visitors, staff, and volunteers as well, through the seemingly simple message that love heals. This series, we've been thinking about how to do justice. Thistle Farms has taught me that in order to begin to do justice, it may be as simple and as complex as remembering and living into those two next all-important words, love, kindness.
Amen to that. Thank you, Melanie. So good. I love this organization. It's just inspiring to see what churches can do and what organizations can do when they listen and go out with that very simple call of love, kindness. So we do have time for a couple questions here. If anybody wants to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I'm curious, what was your role when you worked at Thistle Farms?
Yeah, so I started actually as basically an intern. I was doing my field ed while I was in divinity school. And so I kind of just got inserted where they needed me, which turned out to be in a development role. It was right before one of their big fundraisers at the Ryman downtown Nashville. And so they needed a lot of help there. And then I ended up sticking around in development for 6 more years and yeah, helping with fundraising. And then eventually, once I moved up here, I stayed on working from home as a grant writer for a long time. So, yeah.
Nice. What does that phrase kind of love heals mean in your life? And you saw it in action with people. So I don't know, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just such a great reminder that, again, it is sometimes that simple, that we all need love, you know? I mean, so much of our healing in whatever is ailing us comes from the love of our families, the love of whatever community we're able to find. You know, when we're hurting, it might look different to different people, but ultimately that's what we need is love. And then I think what's so important with that phrase at Thistle Farms is the reminder, is that second word, that heals, that don't ever count anybody out. You can find healing, you know? I mean, women heal, you know, men heal too. Everybody heals if given the opportunity, they can, you know? And so it's that remembrance that, you know, it obviously it takes a lot. Love isn't a simple thing, but that's where we start. If someone is looking for healing, it's as simple as that, a place to rest your head and a community that says, I care about you.
Absolutely. We had one question of, can we buy products from Thistle Farms to support
You
this
certainly
ministry?
can.
Why don't you talk about that, where they can go?
Yeah, www.thistlefarms.org. Here, I'll put it in here. But yes, they have wonderful products all year round. Yeah, the candles are fantastic. That's kind of their flagship product. And then there's body and home products. And there's actually also Thistle Farms Global now. So there's a bunch of different like textiles and clothing and jewelry and things like that actually come from enterprise partners in other parts of the world that we're able to do. It's a shared trade model. So we're able to pay higher wholesale prices and kind of cut out a middle person in there. And so, yeah, they're all organizations that we have connections with. So yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Well, Melanie is going to stick around for a little bit afterwards. If anybody has more questions or we just want to hear a little bit more, I'm still curious about your year-long experience with Lutheran Volunteer Corps. And so let's welcome, thank Melanie. You can clap, you can give a reaction, but thank you so much for being with us tonight. Grateful to hear your story, and thank you for sharing this organization with us. So I'm going to throw it over to Pastor Mark as we close in prayer this evening.
Okay, let us pray. God of steadfast love, you call us to love unconditionally, day in, day out. Help us not to complicate it, to dismiss it as too simple, but to simply live into the love that you call us, that you reflect for us. Unconditional love, unconditional justice, unconditional kindness. You call us to be present with one another. Help us to be close at hand with those in need, with open hearts and open minds, and a love that is unending. In your name we pray. Amen. Now may you remember that you are who God has meant you to be, created in Christ for good works of justice, love, mercy, and kindness. So be a good neighbor, be a good friend, and be God's hands and eyes and ears to a world which is hungry for that love and kindness. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace, love everyone, and do acts of kindness. Thanks be to God. Amen and amen.
Amen. Well, thank you for worshiping with us. If you'd like to stay on, you can do that. And we'll have a little bit more time with Melanie. And check out the loop for opportunities for Holy Week, starting with Palm Sunday, in-person communion outside, drive-up communion on Monday, Thursday, and then worships online for Good Friday and Easter. You won't want to miss it.
So Melanie, what was your year of Lutheran Volunteer Corps? You know, I've had family members do that, and I have kind of a mixed feeling about it. I think it's, how would you say it? Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Part of it, probably a lot of it has to do with your roommates. It was me and two other women. We all had just graduated college, and we all got along great. And so the living situation was fantastic, and we had so much fun. And then my role was really fairly unique, I think, in Lutheran Volunteer Corps, as more of sort of a business setting, being at Churchwide. And so it was kind of a nice transition from undergrad where, so I don't know if anybody knows Mary Stroyfert, who's the director for Justice for Women at Churchwide, but she was very supportive of me continuing to read things and learn things, and she was just a wonderful mentor, and kind of, she had done Lutheran Volunteer Corps, and so she was really supportive and really wanted to, know what I wanted to learn, and that was actually, in that year was when I first started doing a little bit more work with human trafficking, because I created some modules for the ELCA website for youth, actually, that are there. So yeah, I mean, it was a really varied experience. I got to travel a little bit and go to different congregations with Mary, and yeah, I had a really wonderful experience, but it's such an interesting organization because the jobs vary so much, and your living situations vary so much, and the cities vary. So yeah.
I think that's really true. If you can get good roommates and your living situation is livable. I had family and friends in tenuous living situations.
Okay, yeah,
they love the work, but
yeah,
the LCA had no shame in putting them there. But hey, whatever. I'll let it go.
Yeah, and actually our next journey towards justice is going to be Madeline Troyer, who is working at Minneapolis Synod ELCA as a part of Lutheran Volunteer Corps, and she's going to be talking about some water initiative stuff and things like that. So think that'll be really fun. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hey, Melanie, are you still associated with Thistle Farms?
I am not technically working there anymore. I actually now work at Lakewood Cemetery. I just started there in December. And so I just stopped working for Thistle Farms, but certainly still in touch with folks. And yeah, but
Okay.
not anymore.
Great, thank you.
Other thoughts? Melanie, you're part of the Journey Towards Justice group, and we're looking to provide some more opportunities with that. What would you say to anybody who is interested, but maybe possibly hesitant? Like, what has that been for you since that kind of brought you back in this past year?
Yeah, it's been such a nice way to connect. I mean, you know, I've really met church folks through Journey Toward Justice since we hadn't been in person as often, but yeah, it's better. I think I've said to the group before that we often meet in the evenings, and I'm a morning person, and so and I have 2 young children, so by that time of the day I'm a little bit weary, but I always come out of the discussions really energized and really happy that we took the time to meet and talk through some things, and you know, bounce ideas around and hear from one another. So yeah, and it's just a nice way to keep church going throughout the week too, in a different way than worship, and connect our faith to what we might be thinking about in the world as well.
And since you're relatively new to Diamond Lake Lutheran, what drew you in to the congregation in the first place?
Yeah, well, when we first moved up here, we were staying with Jake's cousin, who actually lived just like a block away from church. So that was when we first visited. And some of it was just kind of trying to find a nice fit in Nashville. We were at a congregation that was like 50 people, because there just aren't a whole lot of Lutherans down there. And so we were used to a really small congregation feel. And so we tried out some of the really big congregations up here, and we weren't just quite ready for that big of a jump. And so this felt like a nice kind of middle sized. Everyone was really friendly. We live just down the road, kind of by Veterans Park in Richfield, so it's close by, and I like the idea of church in community. Yeah, I think the building is beautiful, and yeah, we just had a good feeling.
Good.
Hey, Melanie?
Yes.
I'm curious about, you have a master's in divinity at Vanderbilt. What
Yes.
led you to do that?
To get my master's in divinity?
Not everybody gets a divinity master, an MDiv. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a pretty rare.
Yeah, some of it is just, you know, always trying to figure out what you're going to do when you grow up. But yeah, at Luther, I was a music major, and then I picked up a religion major while I was there, because you have to take a certain amount of religion courses at Luther, and I just kept taking them and kept loving them. And so I picked up a major, and then I was like, oh man, what am I going to do with this? So that kind of spurred the year of Lutheran Volunteer Corps. And because of my position at Churchwide, I was able to kind of keep reading and learning, and just really liked the, you know, that study side of it. So I actually wanted to go to divinity school to go on and get a doctorate and teach, was my initial thought. And then I was in divinity school and decided I didn't necessarily want to keep going for 6 more years and get, you know, do the whole doctorate thing. And really liked kind of actually starting at Thistle Farms, really liked the kind of more practical boots on the ground work of nonprofit work, and that kind of just brought in different areas that I liked, of still kind of continuing with education, but being able to do some more practical steps and interact with folks. And yeah, so it was basically just I wanted to keep learning, and wasn't really sure where I wanted to end up after that, but here I am.
Any other thoughts before we close this evening?
What is your role at Lakewood Cemetery?
I am in an admin role right now, scheduling burials and kind of doing office things there. And then they are this is kind of like a whole swing in another direction, but they are doing an ERP implementation, like a big technology system upgrade. And so I'm going to be helping lead that. Actually, at Thistle Farms, I did a couple of implementations of new customer management software there for the development team. So that's actually a random other thing that I like, is some of that nerdy tech stuff. So, so that's a little bit of what I'm doing now.
I'd like to learn more about Justice for Women. And we can talk privately.
Sure.
Either way, I just want to find out more. I'm sad that I've missed so much and just started joining in last week.
Yeah, do you mean the just kind of that department at Churchwide?
Not necessarily. I'm just hungry for what I've been hearing tonight. And then I heard Caroline speak last week.
Okay.
And it just led me to think I need more of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I can certainly send you some things from, at least, are you kind of interested in the, like our church relationship to it, or from a more, from just in general?
Both. I just want to hear more. This is different from things that I've heard before in church, and it intrigues me. It excites me. So I left Carolyn's talk feeling like I had found my people.
Yeah.
And I want more.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I think we're gonna do more of that, hopefully. And actually, I'll get Melanie and Annette, I'll get you guys in touch.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in touch too about maybe how this conversation can continue to broaden at Diamond Lake. But thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Melanie, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you were a music major, is that correct?
Yes.
So what music? What type of music?
I was vocal performance when I was at Luther.
Oh, interesting. You know, we have a choir.
I was gonna say, you're good at tech stuff and you're musical. You're about to get sucked into a whole lot of stuff with Sarah.
Sarah?
Yes?
Thank you for handling that one.
And Melanie, Sarah, and Graydon will be in touch.
Right, sounds good. Someday we'll be able to sing again, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You'll be doing the next Easter cantata. Wait.
Are you a soprano or an?
I am an alto. Yeah. You can probably hear it, but yeah.
We need sopranos.
I know. I wish I could do it.